Hello, everyone. I'm watching as the number of attendees come in, and so I'm going to let that number get up a little bit more, and then we'll start the broadcast, just so we can make sure everybody's in before we really start talking.
So now we're just fake talking.
Yeah, and why is our date on this slide? Is this wrong? Like today's the 5th, and we say it's the 12th on the slide.
I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
It's okay.
I may have accidentally done that, but I don't know.
We're professionals here. For those of you just joining us, like we said, we're still waiting for all of our attendees to be there we go. I think we're good. Today is not, as it says on the slide, we have not fast forwarded in time. It is, today is August the 5th, and this presentation is on getting your goals ready. It's a whole focus on goals, goal setting in Strive. And we're very excited to be here. It is not just me being, well, skip that slide. Joel Adkins, I'm the digital learning coordinator here at eduphoria. And my co-host who is with me is Paige Parker, who is our senior professional learning coach.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you as well. Like I said, we're very excited to be here. We have a lot of information to cover, all about goals. And I don't know why my little cursor's not moving. There we go. Just to give you an idea of what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be talking, of course, about what are the purposes of goals in the evaluation process and the different types of goals that are available. We're also going to be showing the backside of the setting up the evaluation process and how goals are set up in the system to be delivered and seen by the different people who are putting in their goals. And then we're going to talk about the goal life cycle, like what happens from the creation of goal all the way to the end of the year or the end of the time frame of the goal, and who is responsible for which actions for that part of the life cycle. Then we're going to do how to track goal evidence. This is something that anyone who is creating goals and submitting to their appraiser, this is the process that takes place over the course of the year. And then we're going to wrap it up with information about goal reports, the different types of reports that are available there. So I just want to give you all that information for what we're doing. And I also want to make sure, I think I missed 2 of my slides. There is a Q&A section, and that makes what is the conversation that you can have with us as we're doing the broadcast. So like while I'm speaking, Paige will be able to answer your questions. And then while Paige is speaking, I'll be answering your questions as well. And we also know we have a diverse audience. We have a lot of teachers in the room, and we also have a lot of administrators in the room. And so we're going to be kind of guiding the conversation for both of you, so we can make sure that what we're showing is in line with what you should be seeing. And then if you're not seeing that, who to contact or what to do in order to see that types of information for you. So use the Q&A window, focus on what we're talking about today, which is goals. Keep your comments and questions on that topic. If you have any other questions, like maybe something happens and you're like, oh, I need more information on that, you can always email us at training@eduphoria.net. We'd be happy to get in touch with you to help you. The webinars are all recorded. So whenever you join a Wednesday webinar, that means you registered to attend. When you register to attend, that means you will automatically receive an email 24 hours after this recording, so that it has the link to the recording for you to be able to view. And then if there's any other additional information that we need to provide, we put that in the email as well. Zoom controls that time frame. We can't make it sooner. It literally is 24 hours after. However, the videos are taken and converted and put on YouTube by the end of today. So there's 2 ways to get to it from there. You can always look in our help section. There's archived webinars, and it will be linked in there in the Strive section for archived Strive webinars. Another easier way is if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/eduphoria videos. Whenever we post new videos, it will automatically alert you that a new video has been posted. So just making it faster for you to receive a video. If you need it right away, you can easily access it through our archived webinars page or through our YouTube channel. Okay, I'm going to be talking about goal purposes and types at the start of this here. So let's get started. Let's talk about what is the purpose of goals, especially in the evaluation process. And I know a lot of people go through this type of training, but it's always a good reminder to remember what the goal, the type of goals and what is the purpose for doing goal setting. It's not just, oh, it's another thing I have to do at the start of school. The whole focus of goal setting and the type of evaluation that is focused on personal and professional growth really starts with this area of reflection, looking at your own professional practice and what it is that you want to work on personally for your own improvement. So it's focused on improving your professional practice and or your instructional skills. It also aligns with your performance standards, whatever those are. So in Texas, a lot of districts use T-tests for teachers, T-tests for principals. Others may have a different type of local evaluation system where there are dimensions and domains associated with their standards as well. It also uses different data sources for getting the information for your own reflection and also tracking those data sources in how the goal is implemented. And then it somehow involves having consultation with the appraiser. There has to be conversation about the work on the goal itself and getting feedback from the appraiser. So the purpose of the goal is about improving your work, your practice, what you're doing in the classroom, or if you're an administrator, what you're doing as an administrator to lead and to serve. And that's going to be the focus of the purpose of your goals. So what do we look for in goals? Well, we always have a statement. So the goal itself is a statement of what it is that you are wanting to achieve. And then when we say dimensions, that's that framework, those specific standards tied to your job. What are the correlating dimensions that you want to focus on specifically? The actions are how will you accomplish this goal? What can you put in place to help you? What's available within your district or your service center or from maybe a company that is providing the tools for you to be able to access? When do you hope to accomplish the goal? So sometimes people will just say, I'm going to start it here in August and I'm going to end it in May. But maybe there's goals that can be accomplished sooner or even continue more than one school year. So you get to decide when you anticipate that you're going to meet your specific goal. And then there's evidence, the evidence of goal attainment. When I was a teacher, way back in the day, pre-T-tests, it was a different system. It also was not online. We had what was called paper, and we had to use a manila folder to put all of the things that I had done for the year into that folder to take to my end of year conference. And so evidence of goal attainment would be all of those artifacts, all of the things that you have done. Maybe it's professional development, maybe it's going and watching a master teacher do a lesson, maybe it's having someone come in and do consultation with you on what you're doing. It's all of the artifacts and evidence that you can show that you've been working on that goal attainment. And it's always a good place to track that information so that when you are having those meetings with your appraiser, you can access that information to be able to kind of talk about those things to show how you're working on your goals. So that's not just I did this goal statement at the start of school, and now at the end of the year, we're just going to talk about what I did. And I don't remember what I did because I didn't track it. So evidence of goal attainment is that you're actually collecting those artifacts, you're tracking them, you're reflecting on them, and it's all within that goal area. There we go. So there's two types of goals in our system, and most states also have this in effect, which is you're tracking your professional goal, and then you're also tracking what's called a student growth goal, or here in Texas, it's a student learning objective. And so for professional goals, they usually start with I will. So it's a focus on what you specifically will do, as opposed to a student growth goal, which is focused on my students will type of statements. For those goals here in Texas, at least, they're tied to those t-test dimensions, or like I said, if you use a different evaluation system, you'll have your specific dimensions, the framework for, or the standards tied to your appraisal type. For student growth goals, instead, you're going to be looking at the specific TEKS, or the learning standards applied to what's being taught in the classroom. And then evidence is collected to support those action steps in a professional goal. So the things that you're doing to help you achieve your goal. But for student growth goals, you're tracking the evidence collected through what the students are producing, whether it's a student portfolio, it's a VAM, pre and post test, any type of artifact that can be associated with students demonstrating how they are growing based on those goals. There we go. So that's about our goals and just basics about those goals. But I wanted to show, like I was saying in the introduction, we want to be able to show you not just how goals are entered in our system, Paige will be showing that, but also how it looks on the back end for whoever is the administrator who manages Strive to be able to put the pieces together in the evaluation process. And so I just wanted to show this real quick. This is two different views, two different user types who are in the system. And if you are in Strive and able to see what your evaluation process is, the way you would get to this is you would open Strive, and then on the left, you're going to click on My Evaluation Process, and it's going to show you the steps that are required in your process. So here on this left view, this is a district that may have not set up an evaluation process. It has one task, and the task is called default. And in this task, there's probably only one thing to do, but everything is attached in that one thing. And that means the walkthrough form, the summative form, the observation, goal setting, they're probably all just one section. But what most districts are doing is they're defining their evaluation process so that when any user goes in, they can see what is expected of them in the process itself. And in some of these, you can even put a deadline date for when it's due that the person can see, so they know not only the tasks that are required of them, but also the due dates for when those will need to occur. And so the default view is if no one has set up the evaluation process. And then the detailed view is someone's on top of it in your district and they have gone in and set that up. And I'm just going to show you how that is set up.
Can I throw one thing in there before you move on to that slide?
No, Paige. Yes, you may.
If you go into your process and you see the default there, that means teachers, users cannot do their goals the way we're going to show you in a few minutes, because that step, that task is not there. In order for your users to have access to go in and start their goals or their student growth goals, they need to have that step set up in the process. So if you see the default and you're a teacher, you might want to talk to someone at the administration level and say, hey, I can't do my goal yet. And if you're at the admin level and you know that your district is still at default, you can email training@eduphoria.net and we can help you with that.
That's right. So I want to show you, this is on the back end view. This is what someone with appraisal administration rights would see So if you're a teacher, you're not going to see this. If you're a principal, you probably will not see this. But if you are district level and you have the role that's the appraisal administrator, that means you have this section down here for settings, and you have access to appraisal settings. And it's going to show you all the settings for managing Strive. And inside of this area is appraisee types, where when you select an appraisee type, you can define that evaluation process here that determines what the end user sees, and then also what is available for all of those tasks available for them as well. So it is in appraisal settings. It is something that can be accessed again by someone who has district rights to be able to set that up. And for all of these, so our example here, we have different ones because some districts have different appraisee types based on different types of teachers, or different types of principals even, where each has their own different type of steps in the evaluation process. So for all of these steps that are created, when you get to goal setting, just like Paige said, you can have your professional goals that are set up here, and it is set to a specific task type, which the choices are a document, which would be your walkthrough forms, your observation forms, summative evaluation forms are in there. Professional goal is what uses it's kind of like a dynamic form for tracking professional goals that tag to the specific dimensions. And this is also where you can set the due date. And then for student growth goals, the same as here, it'd be a separate task in the process, and using the option to use the student growth goal. The difference here is that it doesn't connect to your framework dimensions that are set in Strive. It connects to the learning standards that are in Forethought. So it's tied to those specific dimensions, just as we outlined before, the differences of those two goals. Okay, so that's going to be in the setup area. And again, like I said, you can have as many appraisee types, and then just going into each one of them and defining the evaluation process for what occurs for each of them. And it makes it easier for the user to see on their end what is required of them. And it also helps for the appraiser to know what specific forms are designated for that particular appraisee type. And I just kind of showed this, but I wanted to verify it again. So when you're adding goals as a task type, when you would create a task in that process, you have the option to select the task type. So we would say it would be a professional goal. And then you can also set a due date, and checking that it would be required puts the number in there showing that it is a required task. And based on how many goals a person creates, it would fulfill the required number of tasks. So it would show if, say, 3 goals were required for this year and someone submitted 2, it would show in their task list 2 out of 3 goals have been created and submitted. Similar for student growth goals as a task, when you define in that process the steps and tasks, when you create a student goal, you have to set it to be a task type to our student growth goal, just like Paige was saying. You can even set a due date and that requirement as well. And we're not going to spend a lot of time just going through and showing how to create an appraisee process, because the focus of this is on goals. But we wanted to show that these options are there. And again, if it's something where you need help with this in your district, or you're noticing, hey, I don't think we're doing this right, please contact us at training@eduphoria.net. We'd be really glad to help you with that. All right, Paige, I think I'm handing over to you now. Are you able to get in there? I don't hear Paige.
Sorry, it was telling me somebody had to stop first, but now I'm going to force you to stop.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, now I think I have it. Yay. All right, so we're going to talk about the life cycle of a goal from start to finish. What are all the steps that you're going to be going through? So I'm going to start with this diagram. There, it finally moved over for me. This is the goal life cycle. So we're going to start here with step one. The teacher or user creates the goal. When it's in this first step, the state of the goal is unsubmitted. And on that evaluation page, it will tell you what state your goal is in, whether it's unsubmitted, submitted, approved, it'll show that. So when the teacher first creates it, it's unsubmitted, all the fields are edited, and the teacher's just trying to get it right before they click the button, pull the trigger, and say, this is going to be my goal. Step two, the teacher or user submits it to the appraiser. There's a submit to appraiser button at the top, and when you think it's right, you'll just click on it. All fields are still editable because the goal has not been approved yet, but the state is submitted now, so the principal gets notification. They see a little thing at the top of their window that tells them how many goals they need to go in and approve, and they can see your goal now and go in and approve it if they want to, if they agree with your goal. So that's step two, and during both of these steps, the teacher user can edit any part of the goal. It's wide open. In step three, the appraiser approves the goal. When the appraiser clicks on the approve button, then you, as the teacher user, find out that yes, this is the goal that they want me to be working on also. So there are some fields that are not editable anymore. You can't change your goal statement. You can't change several other things, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, because the goal has been approved and it's kind of like a contract between you and your appraiser that these are the things you're working on. There is an option to edit an approved goal and make a change if you decide you need to add something or change something about the way it's written, but then you have to resubmit it and it goes back to the submitted step and gets approved again. So between 2 and 3, you can go back and forth a little bit, but you can't make changes after your goal is approved without getting them reapproved. And that just keeps your appraiser in the loop for everything that you're doing with your goal. In step 4, we're back to the teacher user being the one that is doing the stuff. So the teacher user is in charge in step 1 and step 2, then the appraiser takes over for step 3. The teacher user continues working on the goal. This is the point when evidence collection happens and also communication with the appraiser. So the appraiser is coaching you on that goal. The state of the goal is still approved. And then step 5, when the teacher or user decides that they think their work is finished, they're going to mark the goal complete. And they're going to do goal reflections, because that happens at the end of the year, usually before the summative conference or end of year conference. The fields are not editable anymore because the goal has been marked as completed. You can reopen a goal and edit an approved goal and then resubmit it if you need to do that. And we'll talk about that in step 6 a little bit more, because after the teacher marks it completed, then you go to that end of your conference, and one of two things will happen in that conference. Either the appraiser and the teacher user agree that the goal is complete, and then they can archive that goal, or maybe the administrator decides that some additional work needs to be done. Maybe it's not the level we were going for yet. So the teacher user can edit that goal, change the target date, and resubmit it and continue working on it for the upcoming year. So a goal can be extended past a school year if it has not been completed. I'm guessing that many of you did not complete your goals if you're teachers, and the schools shut down in the spring and you probably didn't get to the point of marking your goals completed. So your district may decide that they just want you all to reopen those goals and continue working on them, or they may decide they want you to close those goals and start a new one. But those are the options that you have during that end of year conference where you can determine if the work is really completed. Okay, so let's talk about how you write a good goal. Not everybody talks about SMART goals, but a lot of districts use this as a model for how to write a good goal. So you remember the acronym SMART, which means specific, meaningful, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. So specific is what do you want to achieve in your area? And Joel talked about the goal statement. Meaningful is why is this goal important to you? A lot of times that M for meaningful is listed as measurable instead of meaningful. And measurable means, how am I going to tell that I have completed my goal? Action oriented, what are the steps that you're going to use to achieve it? Sometimes this is listed as achievable, that I wrote a goal that I can actually accomplish. I can measure it and know that I achieved it. How do you know that you can achieve this goal? Is it realistic? And then, by when do you want to have it accomplished? Is it timely? And some people say, instead of timely, it's time bound, that I'm bound to a specific time frame for my goal, at least for the action steps.
And Paige, I was going to add for the R,
Yes.
I like reflective also.
Yes, and reflective is another good R, because you want to have that especially built into your evidence. And Joel talked about reflecting on the evidence also. So that's a good one. So sometimes these have different words to them, but it's always a good acronym to writing your goals, to make sure you have those 5 steps in there. So in my model, SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, results focused, and time bound. So this is our wizard, or our template. It's what you see when you go in to write your goal. So this is what it's going to look like. And you're going to write a goal statement here. And that goal statement is tied to the S for specific, because you're going to be specific in how you word your goal. You don't want to just put in, a few words. You want to do the what, the why, and the how in your goal statement. And then you're going to put a start date and a target completion date. Those are part of the time bound, that I'm setting a limit or a range for when I'm going to do this. I'm also going to write my success criteria. How will I know when I have accomplished my goal? What will it look like? And that's going to be results focused. And then also, we're going to have measurable and results focused up here in our statement some too. So your how in your goal statement might relate to the measurable and results focused, and so will your success criteria. Then you're going to write some action steps in your goal, and you can have as many as you want. This kind of helps you make it achievable, because you're going to break it down into bite-sized pieces. I'm going to do several things to accomplish my overall goal. So this is going to make it achievable. And also, because each one of my action steps can have a date, that's another way that I'm going to make my goal time bound. So you can use our goal process to achieve that SMART goal model, or even if you don't call it a SMART goal, this is just going to be a good, well-written goal with all the features that you want to have. So now let's talk about working on your goals and tracking that evidence. Once you've written that goal statement, you can go in and edit it. We've talked about going through the process. I wrote my goal, I submitted it, it got approved by my administrator. Now I have some decisions and some things that I can do in terms of working on this goal. Maybe I thought of something else I wanted to add to my goal statement, or maybe I forgot one of my standards that I wanted to add in here. Any of these things, my goal statement, status, dates, success criteria, and my standards, those are the things that get locked down when my appraiser approves my goal. So if I want to make a change to any of these parts of my goal, I have to click the Edit Approved Goal button, and then I can work on it, do whatever I want, but this edit approved goal will go away, and in its place will be submit to appraiser, and I have to resubmit that goal if I edit it after it's approved. I can do it, and I'm not discouraging it. You just need to know that you're going to go through that approval process again, because we want to make sure your appraiser knows what you're working on and if you make any changes to what you're working on. Okay, there are things that you can do without having to resubmit. You can, and I'm going to switch over to the live version, and I think this is my teacher one. Yes. So I'm going to go in and look at my goal, and I have a goal here. and it's been approved, and it's these elements are locked down. I could edit it if I needed to. I think this has actually been no, it hadn't been completed yet. But what I can still continue to work on is my evidence collection down here, where I can say, and you can see I have quite a bit of evidence already attached to my goal. I have multiple types of evidence that I can add. So the top one in the list is text, and that's where I'm just going to write anecdotal evidence. So I can just tell a story about something that happened or something I did and how it relates to my goal. So I'm going to be reflective about my own practice if I use a text option for uploading evidence, but it's going to time or date stamp it so that my administrator can see when I have worked on my goal, different times of the year that I put things in there, and the different kinds of evidence that I choose. In addition to text evidence, I can also do a file upload. So I can upload any kind of evidence I have. It might be a picture that I took of my kids working in the classroom or a little video that I recorded. It might be an audio recording of one of my students reading, both at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. It might be some student work that I either scanned or took a picture of with my camera, or a lesson plan that I scanned or took a picture of with my camera. All of those file types can be uploaded. It might be test results that I exported a view from, or took a screenshot of a view from Aware. Any of those things can be added as a file, and then after I've attached the file, I can write a description. So again, I can be reflective about that evidence and how it relates to my goal and my accomplishment of my goal because of these things that I've done. The third type of evidence I can add is a link. So if I have a website, my teacher webpage, I can put the link in there, and then I could describe what I want you to go see on that site and why it's related to my goal. So again, more information and reflection there about any links that I want to include. And then also I can put a workshop portfolio entry. So if I have any professional development that I attended within my district, or if I put in any outside credit requests for professional development that I took at a service center, that's all going to show up here in my list of courses that I have taken. And I can say, this particular session that I went to relates to my goal, and I can again reflect on what I learned in that session, how I used that learning in my classroom, and how that change impacted my goal. So I can continue to work on all of this evidence without doing anything to edit my goal at all. I can also continue to add action steps. So I can come up here and say, I just thought of one more thing that I should do as part of my goal. I can go in and add additional action items anytime I want to. I don't have to get additional approval for that. The only things I have to get approval for is if I change the goal statement, the dates, the success criteria, or my standards and tags. Other than that, evidence and additional action steps I can continue to add to my goal without any approval. The other thing that I can continue to do throughout the goal process is message back and forth with my appraiser. So I can send a message saying, can you help me find some PD that will help me with this? And my principal is going to message back and give me an answer. So I have a date and time stamp when I asked the question and when my administrator sent me a response. I can continue to ask questions, or my appraiser can continue to ask me questions about progress on my goal throughout the year. So I have the ability to do some coaching or have some coaching from my appraiser, to get help, to reach out to somebody, to collect evidence as I'm going through the year. And you can see I even have a video as evidence. So any file type that you want can be up here. I've got PDF documents, it can be a spreadsheet, it can be anything, images, videos. And then I can also continue to build my goal with additional action items as I go through the process. You'll notice that here I have made 2 changes to my goal. It was originally approved a long time ago, and this is what it looked like at that point in time. So that's the history of my goal. The second time it got approved, I had made some changes, and this is what it looked like on that date. So both administrators and teachers can see how has the goal itself changed from the initial approval to now. What was added, what was changed in those two settings there.
And Paige, I was going to add too, for the evidence, when you're talking about your student growth goal, student learning objective, that could be a place to track student portfolios is inside the goal, like uploading student reading a passage, like an audio clip or a video clip, or taking a picture of an assignment and turning it in and attaching it to your student growth goal to show how you are demonstrating the student's work over time attached to that goal.
Absolutely. So in the student growth goals section, I'll talk a little bit about how student growth goals are different, and this relates back to the slide that Joel had. It's going to be a My Students Will statement. In both cases, the teacher is doing the work here. The teacher is going to have all the action items. The teacher is going to be measuring the success. But in this case, they're measuring the success of their students, whereas in this case, they're measuring their own success in putting something into practice. Hopefully, the professional goal is also going to impact the students, but you're measuring two different things. So we're going to say My Students Will, and it's going to be tied to specific TEKs. So you'll go in and navigate through the curriculum tree from your district to find your level, your course, your TEKs, and you'll pick out the specific ones that are attached to your student growth goal. And then the professional goal, again, is attached to those dimensions. So you'll see the T-test dimensions there and select the ones that are appropriate. And then I went the wrong direction. You can also add evidence, as Joel said, or you can add a student portfolio. So you can go in and on a student growth goal, the things that are different is that students will statement, the TEKs would be down here, and then you can attach a portfolio. So you can click on that button that will take you into Aware and allow you to create a rubric that you can use to measure your students as they go through the year on whatever skill area you set. So in this case, the example here, there are 2 milestones, beginning of the year and end of the year. You might want to have 3 milestones where you have a beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. You can select your specific students from your rosters that are in Aware, and you can also go in and say, at these 3 different times, I'm going to measure my students on these different levels. So if your district is using the state's SLO model, you can say that you're going to measure your students. Are they typical, above typical, well above typical, below typical, or well below typical? Those are the 5 categories or areas, levels that the state prescribes in their SLO process. And then you would define a typical student in terms of identifying patterns of the sun, earth, and moon can do this, whereas a well above typical student can do these other things in terms of identifying patterns of the sun, earth, and moon system. So you would write the specific descriptions for your rubric and then the number of milestones. And then you can go in and rate your students, what level they are. Don't know if I have, we'll go in and look. So I'll go in live and see if I have any students that I can look at on this account. But when I click on that, it's going to take me into Aware, and it's going to take me to the place where I can say this is going to be my, my milestone name is going to be beginning of the year, and my label is going to be well above average, and my descriptor is these students can identify and describe all of the, I can't remember what my goal was, phases of the sun and moon at the above average level. Oh, typical, it should be, sorry. If I'm doing the states, they use the word typical. I would say the above typical student can identify most of the phases and describe some. And then a typical student does not have knowledge of the phases. Okay, so I would be more descriptive if I had time, but that's how I would set up my levels. And then I could copy this. And then my second one, my copy would be the middle of the year, copy it again, rename it end of the year. So I have 3 versions. At the beginning, this is what I expect, but by the end of the year, I would expect a little bit more out of each of my levels. So I'd want to modify my descriptors for how have they moved from beginning to middle, how have they moved from middle to end. Once I've done that and have my things in place, I can go in and select my students. I can either select a whole class, and that will take my whole class period, or I could say I want a mixed group, so I'm going to grab these kids from first period, and then I'm going to scroll down and grab these kids from second period, and I'll build my group for my student growth goal, my measurement group, sort of randomly out of all of my classes. I don't have to do everybody in every class, but I can pick my, and that way I can mix it up between some of my demographic groups that I have there. So once I have selected my students, I can go and look at the portfolio itself. Right now I only have one. I didn't actually make my copies, so I only have one. If I had made my copies, I would also have a middle of the year and an end of the year. But I'm ready to do my beginning of the year now, so I can click on show and go in and say, okay, Anne was well above typical from the beginning, and so was Jason. But Richard was really typical. And Hannah, I would say she met the above criteria. So I'm going to look at whatever I did to measure my students at the beginning of the year, and I'm going to rate them based on that measurement and put them in here. And then when I'm done, it's going to show me, oh, I didn't mean to go all the way back there. So I will have, I got myself lost now. I didn't want to add a new school year, a new one.
Did you lose your portfolio?
I did. I've lost my portfolio.
It's the top one, I think, because it's current school year. I don't think you gave it a name.
Okay. I didn't give it a name. I thought I did. Sorry. That's why I got lost, because I thought I had given it a name. So here it is. And then when I go back and look at my students, I want to see that's the view I wanted to see. So now I can see each student and how I rated them. And then I would be able to see my second column beside that, my middle of the year, and did Anne move, did she drop down from well above, or did she stay well above? Did my students who were typical move up at all, or did they stay? Is Richard still typical, or did he move up to above typical? So I can see my kids' progress over time by using this portfolio. That is one method that I can use, and that would show up here in my portfolio snapshot. But I can also, as Joel was saying, use my evidence over here to upload any other evidence that I have, or if my district is not using the portfolio, I can upload the evidence my district wants me to use here using the evidence button. So those are a couple of different ways that the student growth goal is different, and your options for measuring and providing evidence are a little different. And then I have a slide here that just shows that snapshot will let you see a snapshot of the information from what your portfolio is measuring to the group that you have. Okay, if we don't have any questions, I want to jump in and look at the reports.
We have 0 questions.
Okay. All right,
I'm worried it's not working because we have no questions.
So we may be talking to ourselves.
We might be. It's fine.
So I have a couple of reports that I want to share, and teachers probably won't see these reports, but administrators will use them. This first one is good for both the beginning of the year and end of the year. It's the goal summary spreadsheet. So it's going to show me all of my teachers. And at the beginning of the year, they're going to write those goals that are still in the unsubmitted state because they're still working on them. But whatever my deadline is for my teachers to have their goals turned in, I should see all of these numbers move over into the submitted column by that due date. That means they've been turned into their administrator, and that's what the teachers were required to do. I would give my appraisers a couple of weeks after that date. Whatever your date is for the submission, a couple weeks later should be a due date for the administrators to get those goals approved, because you want them to have them approved as they're walking through the process. So first of all, so that everybody knows what everybody's doing, and also so that the teacher can go to the next step. When they get through with their work, they're going to mark that goal completed, and they can't do that if the goal is not marked approved. So if the goal's left in the submitted state, then the teacher can't move on. Before the end of your conferences, I would want to go back in and look at this report again and see that all of my goals have been marked completed by all my teachers, so that when they go into that conference, they can make that determination with their appraiser as to whether it really is completed or I need to reopen it. And then if it's completed, it can be archived at that time by the teacher or the administrator, or if it's left in the completed state, it will get archived when the main district archive is done, that catches all the other documents, the walkthroughs and observations. So before teachers leave, I want every single goal to be either in the completed or archived columns. And so I'm going to look at this at the beginning to see that we got moved all the way over to approved, and then I'm going to look at the end of the year to make sure that everything's going to get filed away as it's supposed to. The second report that I wanted to show is also great for administrators. This is the goals detail spreadsheet. And it's going to give you the status of all the goals and what type of goals they are, but it's going to give you a whole lot more. I can see all the goal statements, and I cut off the columns over to the left that had the teachers' names, but you will be able to know who the goal belongs to. The teacher name field is over on the left. But you can see the goal statement, what they actually said they were going to do, and I may want to talk to some of these teachers about the goals. They're a little bit brief, but this is from my demo site, that's why. I can look at their success criteria, and I can also look at the standards and tags. So if these are the teachers that I am coaching with their goals, I might want to look at commonalities and say, okay, I see several of my teachers have communication in their goal. That's one of the tags that they put in there. Maybe I want to form a small group of teachers that we can meet and talk about communication options, communication methods, because I have a group of teachers that are doing that. I can also see several of my teachers have differentiation as one of their tags in their goals. So I might want to look for some professional development that I can provide, or some resources that I can provide to my teachers that are working on that standard. So by being able to see all of them together, I can find those trends, and I can figure out how, as an administrator, I can help my teachers with their goal work. The next report I want to talk about is the evaluation status report. And when you run it, there are two ways to run it. One of them says, let me go in and look at my my administrative view. When I go into as an administrator or as a principal, I will have a section over here that says reports, and I'm going to go to the appraisal reports. And the evaluation status report has two choices: summary by school or detailed by appraiser. And summary by school is nice. It gives you one line per teacher, and it just shows Paige Parker's name, and it says how many walkthroughs I got, how many observations. So it just has a number: 3 walkthroughs, 1 observation, 1 summative. Done. But the detailed by appraiser, if I choose that one, it's going to give me multiple lines for each teacher, because it's going to give me 1 line for each document that was done, each thing that happened. So I can see here, Gilderoy Lockhart had an observation here, and he also had one on another day. Bathsheba here, or no, yeah, she had a walkthrough and an observation on a different day. So I can see each document for each person. Not only can I see what was done, but I can also see the date that it was done, the date that the administrator made it viewable, which means they clicked the button that says let staff view. And that way the staff member can now see it and see how they were rated. And then I also have a column that says viewed date. So that's the date that the appraisee actually opened it up and looked at it. So from this report, a couple things that I want to, throughout the year, I would want to check and make sure that things are being marked viewable and teachers are viewing them. If I have something that was not sent, like this summative, that means that this teacher never had the opportunity to view it. So if I ever said, based on your summative, I'm not renewing you, they can say, hey, I never saw a summative. I never knew anything about that because it was not sent to them. They never had access to it. So I would want to check and make sure that all of my dates are made viewable, that I don't have any not sents over here. And then I want to make sure that my teachers are actually looking. I'm sorry, my touchpad just went crazy on me. Hope I didn't make anybody car sick. The viewable column is important because if they are not made viewable, if it says not sent, they will not get archived. And so that's an important piece to remember. I want to make sure before everybody leaves that all my documents are viewable, and I would hope that they have been viewed as well. And then the last one is the Unsigned Documents report. And if you require a signature on anything, and not everybody requires signatures and not everybody requires them on every document, but some districts require observations and summatives to be signed. If that's the case, then you can run this Unsigned Document report and you can see when the staff member signed it and when the appraiser signed it. Again, if documents require a signature and they're not signed, they will not get archived. So before everybody leaves at the end of the year, you want to check this unsigned document and make sure that there are dates in both of these columns and that nothing says not signed. So that's another one that's, I think, very helpful as you're going through that goals process. Okay, Joel's going to talk about help. I would be happy to answer any questions if there are any, but I'm going to stop my sharing and let Joel take back over.
Perfect. And I was going to say, while I'm doing this real quick, I noticed on that last slide you had there that Ozzy Osbourne was one of the
yes, I had to change
appraisers.
I had to change the names to protect the innocent. So I just kept their last names and changed their first names. So I also had Charles Barkley and Post Malone, and I can't remember who the other one was, but I had a couple people in there that you probably recognized if you looked hard.
Is it showing my presentation?
It is.
Thank you.
It is.
It popped up something strange a second ago.
Okay.
So just to give you more information, we covered a lot in here, and I know we went through goal setting for itself and also setting up the evaluation process, the different goals and things like that. But I just want to share help is available. When you go into our help section, just to give you a look at what this looks like, we have it broken out as the type of role for the user and how they can access that help. So for Strive itself, for the managers, whoever is managing appraisal settings, they have their section on the left over there, and that includes how to create and manage those appraisee types. And so that is available in our help. And just to show you what that looks like, when you go in of our applications, if you click on help and it pops up Eddie Helps, at the very top of the menu is additional help resources, and you can click that and it will return you to what used to be our help article section. That was that link. And when you go into Strive specifically, it's going to have it broken out again, tasks for teachers, tasks for principals. If you scroll down, here's where it's the managers and all of the settings for appraisal settings, including building your appraisee types. And the article below that I know by heart is putting in your evaluation process for those appraisee types. So all of those help articles are in here. as well as information about all of those reports, not just the ones associated with goals, but everything from the reports that are on the side to appraisal analysis that's also within the Strive reporting tools as well. I would say any final questions, but we really didn't have that many questions. We had really good comments. I heard from Dixie and I heard from Rick, so I'm excited about that.
That's awesome.
But
We don't have any open questions at this point, but if any come up later,
please just email us training@eduphoria.net. And again, if you saw something in this presentation where you're like, I'm not sure that we have that set up right, or if you just want us to give a look at what you have and give some feedback, we are open to that. So do feel free to reach out to us and we would be really glad to help you. We have more webinars. You know, it's funny, like it was kind of like Paige and I had a 2-week break because there were 2 back-to-backs from the Aware team, and now we are scheduled. So next week, we are doing a webinar on the 12th, and this is important for our T-TEST and T-PEST districts. We are going to be talking about the updated T-PEST framework, which is new. TEA has released the new dimensions and domains for T-PEST, but it's only to be put into effect for next year. So they released it early. Some districts are moving forward and using the updated framework. Others are going to wait until next year to do that. So we are going to be covering the changes. We're also going to be covering all the resources that we've already published in Eduphoria community if you wanted to look at those in advance. It's not homework. It's just there if you want to look at it. But yeah, so that's going to be next week. And then the following week, Miss Page will be doing a forethought focused one on, it's really for your teachers to help them customize their planner for their own use. So am I right on that page, or is it for everybody?
No, it will primarily be for teachers, but we may have some district level people who aren't familiar with the lesson planner, and they're welcome to join us too.
Perfect. And then I think after that, we're going to have another Aware one. We don't know what the topic is yet, but we'll post that information on our registration page. And I saw a question had come in. Just remember, when you register to attend our webinars, you're putting in your email address, and that means you will automatically receive this recorded link to this webinar and whatever webinars you register for. Even if you don't attend a live recording, you're still going to receive the link because you registered for it. So just letting you know, it's there. It's also going to be on YouTube and on our archived webinar page. And just more information about that new T-PEST, just so you know, so you're not like, oh my gosh, we have to change everything before the new year. It is not required to change to the updated T-PEST until next school year. So right now it is optional. I know that TEA has information on their website. They're not saying districts should do it because it means all of your appraisers and their appraisers would have to be retrained by TEA through the service centers on the new T-PEST framework. So only consider it if you're going to be doing that for this year. But we are going to be sharing about it next week and all of the requirements and information. And there is a link, tiny URL, and it's eduphoria-new-TPEST. And that will give you the link to our resources where we already have published information. And again, any questions, email us at training@eduphoria.net. And of course, we're happy to help. And the last thing is you can always sign up for updates. It's in our help section as well. There's a section for software updates and announcements. And on the right side is a button for how can I receive announcements. It takes you to this form and you can put in your contact information. We are publishing newsletters, blogs. As we are getting ready to release new software, we share it through our social media and through email. So this would be a great way to know what is up and coming. And that's all I have. I'm going to take a deep breath.
There you go.
Good
I did get
page.
one
Okay.
question I wanted to answer. Someone asked about the link to the presentation. We will put that in the email that you get in 24 hours that also has the link to the video recording.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a great week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.